Welcome to Good for Bitcoin, a weekly show recorded live every Friday where we recap the top events of the week and talk about everything that is good for Bitcoin. If it's built on Bitcoin, then it's good for Bitcoin. Let's get started.
Content shared on this podcast is for informational and entertainment purposes only. It does not constitute financial, investment, or legal advice. The views and opinions expressed are those of the host and guests and do not reflect the official policy or position of any other agency, organization, or company. We encourage you to conduct your own research and consult with a qualified professional before making any financial decisions.
Well, hello, everybody, and welcome to Good for Bitcoin. We have so much to get into this week. Lots of news on the quantum front. Bitcoin is up about 6% over the past week. We passed 73K this morning. Crypto fear and greed still sitting at 16, which is up from last week's 9, but we are still in extreme fear. We are live on goodforbitcoin.com. I have verified that we are not having technical difficulties with the stream this week. Apologies for last week. And we are live and ready to go. Kate, how was your week?
Hey, it was a good week. Relatively relaxed, but it seems like there's so much happening in the news. Little Zcash had a crazy pump this week as well. They're back up, so we're back.
We're so back. Good for them. Yeah, this was going to be the Zcash show for a little bit there. I saw a headline about Zcash pumping, but I didn't look at the price. Has it recovered a lot, or is it just a little bit?
Yeah, I think it's fully recovered. I think we're sitting at around, well, maybe not full. Yeah, it's sitting over $500. So
okay, that's pretty good.
That's Canadian also. Sorry.
Yeah. You know that one meme where it's down and to the right, it's all red, and then there's the tiny little green, and it's oh my god,
we're back.
I was wondering if it was like that or not.
No, it's having a full comeback, but I don't know.
Good for them.
There's just so much happening in the world. People are coming back to Bitcoin and privacy.
Yeah, certainly. We have a couple news stories that kind of touch on that this week. But yeah, certainly having some uncensorable, decentralized money in the world is valuable for sure. Well, let's get into it. We got some public companies to talk about. Of course, Strategy is back on the board this week after missing last week. They bought 4,871 BTC. They now hold 766,970 Bitcoin.
Welcome back to the board. And then we have Strive. They bought 113 Bitcoin this week, and they now hold just under 14,000 BTC.
We have CanGo Inc., which is a Bitcoin miner. They actually sold 2,000 BTC, said in a press release that these proceeds are going to be used to retire some outstanding Bitcoin-backed loans. But they now hold just 1,025 BTC. So they sold basically 2/3 of their Bitcoin to pay back some of those loans, which is not ideal, but certainly, Bitcoin miners, Bitcoin-backed loans, that's never usually a winning strategy there in the long term. It always comes back to hurt these miners, so that's just another example.
Yeah. Then we have Hyperscale Data. They're a data center company. They bought 5.861 Bitcoin, and they now hold 633 Bitcoin.
Getting on the board. ProCap Financial saw some leadership changes. It's kind of funny because I messaged you about it. Right after the show, I saw this news. During the show last week, we shouted out Jeff Park, who is always on Pomp's podcast every week. He is apparently out as CIO, so he's seemingly not going to be on the podcast anymore every week. There's also Shane Muir, who's the founder of CFO Sylvia, who's that deal closed this week. They acquired them, becomes the CTO of ProCap. And then Phil Rosen, who's the CEO of Opening Bell Media, also joins them as the chief marketing strategist. So definitely making some moves over there, people shuffling in and out while they kind of reorient their business towards this new AI agentic thing that they're trying to build.
Makes sense. All right. Shall we get into the news this week? You were talking about last week, the Bitcoin faucet. Tell me what happened there.
I was a little bummed checking out the faucet. It was not It was not a faucet, actually, as we suspected. Just kind of like a marketing promotion for a few different things that they have. Like if you bought Bitcoin on Cash App, you would like also get $5 in Bitcoin. If you bought a BitKey, you would get like $50 in Bitcoin. If you paid with Bitcoin at like a Square seller, you would get $25 in BTC. That one was like the coolest one to me because, you know, it's like promoting going out and buying, you know, local. I did check, I downloaded Cash App and I checked, they have like a Bitcoin map. It is not very intuitive to find. It's kind of like buried within their settings, but I did check locally to see like, are there any businesses in my area that are accepting? And there's like, was not that many.
Yeah.
There was like a couple restaurants, like a car detailer, and like that was mostly it. There was not that many available. So I did not have a lot of reasons to go out and pay with Bitcoin just for the novelty, I guess, of it.
Yeah,
but
for sure.
Hopefully by the end of this month, because they said it's kind of rolling out gradually, it'll be, you know, there'll be more options available for a lot more Square sellers. But for now, it's kind of slim pickings.
Yeah. I wonder like how much, I'm sure a lot of those places don't get paid in Bitcoin a lot. Like I wonder if you even just went and you were like, hey, I want to pay in Bitcoin, if they would even be like, yeah, we don't do that here.
Well, that's kind of the point with this. So like all the getting $25 in BTC promotion is cool. Like that's actually something that they've already had. It wasn't like something that launched on Monday. And it specifically is for first time Bitcoin payments at those establishments. So like it basically is putting the work on the buyer to go out and try to like orange pill the sellers and being like, hey, by the way, you can actually accept Bitcoin and I'd like to give you Bitcoin for this purchase. And like that's what they want, you know.
Yeah.
So yeah, they're putting the burden on the buyer basically to you know, to have that conversation.
Yeah.
Which I guess makes sense, kind of. But
hey, it's like a fun experiment for sure.
Yeah. I saw this news. I thought this was really cool from our friends at Xverse. They launched Agent Wallet, which is a Bitcoin native agentic wallet. Xverse.app/agents is the website. And basically it's giving agents a Bitcoin wallet. So AI agents can now pay, trade, and manage a treasury on Bitcoin Rails. It also has integration with Lightning through Spark. So you can do Lightning payments there. Supports machine payments protocol, supports 402. So it supports, you know, all the different protocols for that while remaining fully self-custodial. And it has built-in support for swaps and on-ramps. So you can fund your agent's wallet and let it run wild, I guess. So pretty cool that we're seeing more stuff, you know, being built on Bitcoin with agent payments, because we hear so much about, you know, stuff happening on Ethereum and Solana and Base with X402.
Exactly.
So really cool that Xverse is leading the charge with Bitcoin here.
Nice. That's going to be cool. I'm really excited just to see like how much the agent economy like actually blows up in this next year. I mean, even on Stacks, I think there's over like 750 agents right now.
Yeah.
I guess just like it could be huge. Like even if there's like, I don't know, like a 10% increase in, you know, like agent to agent payments, like that's so much transactions. And whether it's on Lightning or Stacks or wherever it is, like that is just like such a use case because they need to be able to pay each other and move around quickly and stuff. So yeah, pretty cool. Congrats.
Yeah, I know AIBTC is like nearing 1,000 agents pretty soon. Yeah. It's pretty amazing. I think when we joined, or when I joined, I don't know, what was that, like a month ago maybe? It was like maybe like 100 or 200. So through all the different promotions that they're doing between the bounties and the AIBTC.news stuff that they're doing, and also all the stuff that Bitflow is doing with them, with the skills, they're growing quite a bit. So yeah, it's pretty cool.
Has your agent earned you anything yet?
It has, I think.
Oh, that's cool.
I needed to go in and look. I don't know. I mean, it's hard to quantify because like I was using OpenClaw with my agent, and then Claude, was that last week? They like completely kneecapped OpenClaw, and now you have to use you have to like, you can't use your Claude subscription with OpenClaw. You have to like use the API. So I was like, okay, how can I fix this? And you know, I don't want to pay for the API. I'm already paying for the subscription.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Claude does have a built-in way of doing like recurring tasks. So I was able to like, it's certainly a little bit more simplified compared to like an OpenClaw, but basically every hour I have my agent like checking its soul file to like identify who it is. It's connected up to like its own GitHub and like a few other things. And then it's, checking for news. It's, submitting things. It's basically doing all these things like every hour.
Yeah.
And it's all now it is powered by like my Claude subscription, which is really cool. So
That is cool.
I was thinking of making like a post about it because I feel like a lot of people are in the same boat where they don't want to have to pay for Claude API, but they still want to continue doing this. And yet, like if you have a Claude subscription, you can engage with this, and it's not super token intensive either, which is definitely what I was running into with OpenClaw. Like that thing consumes tokens like crazy. So it's a lot more lightweight, which is very nice for me.
Well, I hope you do publish it because I would definitely use that. Even like Rubes from Stacks published this article, like the Dummy's Guide to Setting Up Your AI Agent on Bitcoin. And I just find those so useful because it is it's not easy to like navigate. And I think it's just like new, I don't know, like new workflows or something that you're not used to. And you just want to protect yourself. But I would love to read like how it's been going for you. So
yeah, I think it's been smooth enough that it's been smooth enough, like running now, I think for the past like week or so that I think it's fine to like post like the workflow.
Nice.
I don't want to post like a workflow that is like half baked and, doesn't work.
Then everyone gets scammed.
Yeah.
Not scammed, but like
soon,
the agent goes rogue.
I'll work on that. So I think this was the biggest story we talked about. We've been talking about quantum over the past couple of weeks. And the title of the show is, has Bitcoin been quantum resistant this whole time? Which is, the answer is no, but but
maybe
this is still kind of interesting. So, so Starkware's quantum. So, I took this headline from Unchained that had a good recap for it. Which said Starkware's quantum safe Bitcoin scheme requires no protocol changes and just $150 in GPU compute. But yeah, this week Starkware CPO Avihu Levy has published a white paper that basically makes Bitcoin transactions resistant to quantum attack today using only existing network rules, but each transaction costs up to $150 in GPU compute. The project is called Quantum Safe Bitcoin, or QSB, and basically using only the network's existing consensus rules. It doesn't require a soft fork. There's no protocol upgrade, no community coordination that's involved. And this scheme basically replaces Bitcoin's standard ECDSA signature mechanism with a hash-based construction that requires quantum computers can only attack using something called Grover's algorithm. But still, while it is like a proposal that does like work without any changes to Bitcoin, it still requires you to pay $150 for every transaction that you would be making in GPU computing. And these transactions are non-standard transactions, basically meaning that you'd have to use a service like Marathon's Slipstream to get them through. Like, it's kind of like a last resort, basically. Yeah. If the core devs basically don't get their act together and activate a quantum soft fork in time, there is a way basically to, to still use Bitcoin, I guess, but we don't want it to come to this, right? Like we want a better solution for this. I was hearing a little bit more about like some quantum like proposals with Bitcoin, and like once, let's say that the Bitcoin devs like do start working on this, right? And they figure out a proposal and they get it working, and like they publish a soft fork, and like the solution is technically like published in Bitcoin code. That from there, you would then have to migrate your Bitcoin, like as a user in your wallet, you would have to move your Bitcoin to another address, or like you'd have to actually move your Bitcoin, which would then change like the signatures that Bitcoin is held under. So in order to do that for all of the UTXOs that are on Bitcoin, in a best case scenario, it would take like a few months, and the blockchain would just be completely full during that time. Even, the best case scenario of like everyone starts working on this and publishes a new version of Bitcoin, the work is like not over, and then it's going to take longer after that for everybody to migrate over. So yeah, it's going to take a long time for, this to happen and for everybody to be migrated over and for everybody to be quantum safe. And with this new timeline that Google shared last week that we talked about, 2029, it's only a few years away, right? So yeah, there's not a lot of time, in total to have a proper, solution for this. But at least I guess there's like this kind of weird workaround if like worst case scenario happened and there was like a quantum break and you still needed to move your Bitcoin around.
Yeah. I mean, like if you're sitting on, I don't know, 10 million or like $50 million worth of Bitcoin, $150 is not that bad, but obviously that's very expensive for one transaction. Then it just kind of like defeats the whole purpose of the network. But again, it's nice to know that there's at least like sort of like a break glass emergency backup. Yeah, I don't know. It kind of just seemed like this came. I mean, it did kind of come out of nowhere with like Google dropping this, but I don't know. Who knows how this is going to unfold? I'm sure that like people are going to start moving within the year to like actually make some proposals and stuff like that. But
yeah, I think there was some speculation after the Google news happened last week. I was seeing some conversation and people were speculating that Google themselves probably made like a breakthrough internally. Yeah. Maybe that they aren't like fully talking about yet. That, is making them, accelerate their timeline so much. Yeah. And they're just trying to kind of front run that a little bit and be nice and being like, hey guys, you need to take this a little bit more seriously. Because it's coming sooner than we, originally thought. So we'll see.
Crazy. Well, in true Bitcoin fashion, every couple of years, someone tries to unveil who the real Satoshi is. Yeah. So I saw this week. It was from the New York Times. They dropped this big piece on claiming who they know who the real Satoshi is, saying that it's Adam Back. So it was written by John Carreyrou, and he's the guy who like did like a big series on Elizabeth Holmes on her like Theranos. I can't remember exactly what it was, but it was like a blood thing. And he basically like unveiled that this was all a scam, and she's obviously in prison and stuff now. So he spent an entire year like interviewing, going down the rabbit hole and trying to make the case that Adam Back, who's a British cryptographer, CEO and founder of Blockstream, that he is Satoshi. And I mean, his case is like definitely very rigorous. I would say like more so than most people who have done sort of like these unveilings and research. So he looked a lot at like linguistics, really just like the timing, the fact that like Back outlined every component of like Bitcoin on the cypherpunks between certain years when Satoshi was there. Obviously Back combined Hashcash with Wayday's B money and like sent it to the public mailing list like way before Satoshi did. But I mean, obviously Back is denying this and saying, I'm not Satoshi. I would totally understand why you think that. I was very loud and, involved at this time, but there's like a lot of reasons why I'm not. And he's basically saying like someone can just decide that it's me and then find all the reasons that would support their bias, but he's obviously outwardly denying it, and he's said many times like it would be a bad thing to uncover who Satoshi was. It makes it like very neutral money by just leaving the inventor anonymous. So yeah, it's an interesting one. I don't know. Like, I feel like at this point when we hear people trying to like uncover who he is, everyone's just kind of like, let it be, like we don't want to know. And like obviously there's a lot of cryptographers that were involved around this time, but some people were saying like, well, Satoshi coded in C++, Back coded in C, different styles. There was also one saying like Back and Satoshi were like emailing each other even before the project was launched. So it's like, why would you be like emailing yourself for like years in advance talking about this? But yeah, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think it's interesting. I don't think it's Adam Back. I think it was last year there was like the Becoming Satoshi documentary that we talked about. That one thought that it was Peter Todd.
Yep.
Was Satoshi. There's a lot of people that have always speculated that like Hal Finney is, but that's been pretty like thoroughly debunked. There's a lot of people that have said that it was like Len Sassaman, which I think like makes some sense because he committed suicide like a few years after like Bitcoin launched, and like that could make sense why like Satoshi's coins haven't moved and everything like that. And he was also like cypherpunk. I did see this really interesting tweet from Jameson Lopp yesterday. He said, there are clues to Satoshi's identity that are closely held secrets by those who found them. Clues I've discovered exist only in my head. Even those of us who have researched Satoshi deeply dare not share them with each other lest they be leaked. Just super interesting. It sounds like Jameson Lopp maybe might know who Satoshi actually is. But I just think it's super interesting. Like, you could never, with just how much technology has advanced, from like 2009, like if you tried to anonymously launch something like Bitcoin today, like people would be able to find out who you are. Like there would be ways, like it's just, it was so much easier to actually be anonymous back then, truly. That it's just like, it was the perfect time, to launch something like Bitcoin and disappear and leave no trace or leave little trace that, people weren't able to put the pieces together and figure it out. Yeah. I mean, I don't think it was Adam Back, but there's also, kind of like to Adam, what Adam has said and like to what others have said, there's not like thousands of potential people that it could be, right? Like there's it's a very niche thing. Like the skills that you would need to like be like a programmer, be like a cypherpunk cryptographer, type of person, that list of people is pretty small, maybe like 100 or 200. So, I mean, especially with like AI and stuff too, like it is totally possible that we could actually have like a definitive answer maybe in some form in the future, but not yet. It's not Adam Back, I don't think.
Maybe it really is Craig Wright after all these years.
No, how dare you say that? Certainly not.
Could you imagine? Not. I'm just kidding. That was a joke. Anyway.
Switching gears. I thought this was cool. The Treasury Department has designated Robinhood and BNY as vendors for the Trump accounts. What is a Trump account? They are a specialized tax advantage IRA style investment vehicle, specifically for U.S. children under 18. The U.S. Treasury basically offers a $1,000 seed deposit, which was funded by Trump's big, beautiful bill for eligible children born between 2025 and 2028, with up to $5,000 in annual contributions allowed. So if you're a parent, you can also add to that. And then those funds are locked until age 18. So I think this whole initiative from Trump is like super, super cool. It's basically, teaching kids and teaching also parents, like, from an early age about investing. This is something that like I never learned about, until I was much older, certainly after I became an adult. So really, really cool to have this kind of initiative that is teaching, parents and kids, like if you, start with $1,000 and you invest it and you wait, 18 years, look what it can grow into. It's like a really awesome lesson. So I think it's a really cool thing. But yeah, basically BNY will manage the initial accounts, help develop the new Trump Accounts app. Robinhood will serve as a brokerage and initial trustee. And the National Design Studio, in conjunction with Robinhood, is in charge of the UX and UI of the app. So lots of collaboration there. But yeah, really cool initiative that the US is doing.
That's super cool. Does that mean if like you invest through there, you could buy Bitcoin or Bitcoin ETFs, or is that like unclear at this point?
I don't think so. I think it's pretty limited by to S&P 500 or like larger, indexes, which I mean, maybe a good thing. I don't know. I mean, it certainly would, 18 years from now, I'm sure Bitcoin will be much higher, but maybe.
Cool.
Yeah. They're probably very, very, very conservative on, what they're allowing people to put in there.
For sure. At least to start, for sure. I'm like, maybe in the future they would expand upon that.
Certainly.
But,
we haven't heard a lot of news on the Clarity Act, but this week, the White House released this paper, which was called Effects of Stablecoin Yield Prohibition on Bank Lending, basically outlining, their thoughts on, the banks are basically arguing that, yield on stablecoins is going to be disastrous for banks, and it's going to, cause everyone to leave the banks and go, put their money in Coinbase or something. Like that's the argument. So I wanted to share the conclusion. It's a really long paper. There's a lot of like math and a lot of like modeling and stuff in here. But their conclusion was basically the yield prohibition in the Genius Act and its proposed reinforcement through the Clarity Act may be motivated by the concern that competitive stablecoin returns will draw deposits out of the banking system and contract lending. But their model shows that this concern is quantitatively small. Most stablecoin reserves recirculate through the banking system as ordinary deposits. Only the 12% held in bank accounts is truly locked out of the credit multiplier. And even that fraction is further attenuated by prudential reserve requirements. Basically, they said at a baseline calibration, eliminating stablecoin yield increases bank lending by just $2.1 billion, which is just like a tiny drop in the bucket for banks, which represents a net increase of 0.02% of total loans. So in short, a yield prohibition would do very little to protect bank lending while foregoing the consumer benefits of competitive returns on stablecoin holdings. So basically, it's just saying like, this isn't even a big deal. Banks need to just chill and just let it happen and let capitalism and free markets and competition be a thing. Which,
totally.
Of course, we support here.
Yeah. Good. Does that mean, because when do they need to sign this by again? I know we've talked about it before, but is it kind of just like when it's ready?
I think it was like, if it doesn't get signed, I think by the end of this month, May? It's just like kind of gets like lockstep with like all the other stuff that's like happening in the government. And if it doesn't get signed soon, it's going to become probably just like a dead bill potentially, which isn't good.
Well, we can roll into the Genius Act one, and then we have some, I think, exciting ones to take us home. But
yeah, you put a lot of good ones in here. The FDIC has approved a proposal to implement the Genius Act requirements. Basically, they're starting to like get the ball rolling on stuff with the Genius Act. So their proposed rule would establish a framework for FDIC supervised permitted payment stablecoin issuers, including requirements related to reserve assets, redemption capital, and risk management standards. Basically, it's allowing or basically codifying that if you are a stablecoin issuer and you are holding assets on behalf of your users, it's FDIC insured. So just a little bit safer, basically, to hold stablecoins.
Nice. All right, let's get into some more exciting stuff. So this, I'm sure you probably saw this one, but there was an exchange on Solana called Drift, and they got hacked and drained for $285 million, and it happened within the span of 12 minutes. So they traced it back to a group of North Korean hackers, and through kind of like a debrief of how this all happened, they figured out that these hackers spent 6 months social engineering their way into the organization through conferences, meetups, different countries. They even put more than $1 million of their own money into the exchange just to make it look more legit, and then they cleaned it out, and it was an absolutely wild story to read. I don't know the technicals of how this the hack happened. It was through, I think, different plugins and just kind of this whole web of thing that happened. But yeah, they're linking it back to the Lazarus Group, who has now stolen over $300 billion from crypto companies based out of North Korea, and they're basically funding their entire state through these exploits, which is just wild.
Yeah, I did see a lot of news about this. I think it's crazy, and just working in the industry, it all sounds very plausible that I don't know how deep you read into this, but basically, North Korea, if you're in North Korea and you're a hacker, you can't just travel to a crypto conference, right? You're kind of banned. So basically what's speculated is that these North Korean hackers hired these people to act as if they were part of this company. And then those people, joined up with conferences and stuff like that, with people that worked at Drift, forming relationships, saying that they were a market maker or something, wanting to integrate Drift into their systems. And they worked with them over, months. And I think what eventually happened was after, further integrating, their platform into Drift, they sent I think it was speculated they either sent some sort of 0-day exploit to one of the engineers or one of the people that would be responsible for integrating, their platform into Drift. And that's how they got in. But yeah, it was just over it's probably like a relationship that started with like a business development team that, got introduced to, I think it was like in a Telegram chat, and then they were in a Telegram chat with them. And, they were just like many crypto partnerships, right? Where you're talking about stuff over a few months and, trying to get a deal together and sending files back and forth to each other. And like you said, certainly a long con. So, and then, like that, the hack happened. And then everybody from that Telegram, I said Telegram and Discord, Telegram channel, like they all like vanished and they like left the chat. And so that's the speculation, is that it was all that. So very crazy stuff. There was also, though, a lot of talk about just like how decentralized was this platform.
Yeah. Like
so there was a lot of conversation about that too. Like, that Drift basically had custody of these funds at the end of the day. So that's how it was able to be hacked for that much.
Yeah.
But make sure that your DeFi is decentralized, I guess, is the takeaway.
Yeah. There was like a screenshot that was getting shared by, I don't even know who it was, but he was basically just saying like, I value like speed over security. And I think that was getting shared quite a bit.
Yeah, that's a bad look.
Not a good look. Yeah.
This one, you talked about this last week, but it launched. So Morgan Stanley's Bitcoin ETF, ticker MSBT, launched. Their head of digital asset strategy, Amy Oldenburg, she was on, I think, Fox News or somewhere, and in an interview, she said that their new Bitcoin ETF saw the best first day of trading of any ETF that they had ever launched. So there is still demand for Bitcoin ETFs, new Bitcoin ETFs, I guess. Very cool. I haven't checked to see like how they've kind of done since then, or where they kind of stack up, in like AUM compared to like BlackRock and Bitwise and everything else. But very cool. We have the first bank that has launched a Bitcoin ETF in the US.
Very cool. Yeah. All right. Next one, we'd love to see it. A little solo miner successfully mined an entire Bitcoin block earlier this week. So they took home the whole block reward. So a little over 3 Bitcoin, like plus the fees and stuff. So it's worth roughly around $210,000 to $224,000. But the odds of this happening are literally like a lottery ticket, like just insanely high odds. But I found that like solo miners have found like 20 blocks in the past year, which seems high to me. Like, I think that's pretty cool. It's a very high number.
It's pretty amazing.
Yeah.
Certainly we've pulled up charts before, like mempool.space has like some charts of like just miners, and I can maybe try to pull it up really quick, of like what miners kind of dominate, the hash power. And it's pretty much dominated by like over 50% of the mining, hash power is dominated by just like a couple miners.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, so I just pulled it up here. So like, Foundry USA is like 31%, then Ant Pool is 17%, F2 Pool is 11%, and then you're already over half of the of the hash power there. So yeah, really cool that, despite the, I guess, centralization of miners, you still have the underdogs and the little guys and the solo miners, still getting some blocks.
There you go. Proof of work, don't care.
Yeah. This one was pretty crazy. I mean, we talked about this last week. I don't know, did Iran listen to our show or something? Because there's a headline from the Financial Times this week that said that Iran is now seeking $1 per barrel of oil passing through the Strait of Hormuz, but paid in Bitcoin. So last week we talked about it, that they were seeking either like Chinese yuan or like stable coins.
Yep.
But now this week is Bitcoin. So they adjusted course, and they want, something that is permissionless and decentralized, which for Iran certainly makes sense that they would want that, and unconfiscatable, which is probably the most important thing for them.
Yeah.
But yeah, super interesting. You put in a couple other tidbits here, so I'll let you kind of take it away. But
yeah, go ahead.
There's this quote from Husseini who said, I guess, once the email arrives and Iran completes its assessment, vessels are given a few seconds to pay in Bitcoin, ensuring they can't be traced or confiscated due to sanctions. So that is directly why they are looking for Bitcoin and not, alternative like USDT or something like that.
Yeah. Yeah, I put a couple notes in here. The first one was that I just like it's always funny to see when the tables turn. So like 5 years ago, Iran was banning Bitcoin mining, and now it's working quite well in their favor. And then the next one was just this tweet from Jack Mallers, which I thought just like summed it up really great. And he said, "Is Bitcoin actually competing to be the world reserve currency? Yes. When you need money that nobody can debase, that is free to hold and receive, that is cheap to transfer, and that is censorship resistant, and that even enemies can settle in, there is no second best."
Yeah, it goes back to like the free speech argument. Like if you care about free speech, you need to also defend, free speech to your enemies or people that you disagree with. That's what Bitcoin is, right? Bitcoin is free speech. It's free money. It doesn't matter who it is. It can be North Korea. It can be Iran. And we need to also defend their right to use Bitcoin as well. That's what an open permissionless network is. So good stuff. Good way to end it on, just talking about the fundamentals of Bitcoin.
Yeah, this is like the most fundamental case that you can get.
It totally is. Yeah. Unseizable, permissionless, I can't talk today. Censorship resistant. Yeah. Good stuff. Okay, I think that wraps up for the week. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. Catch all of our episodes at goodforbitcoin.com, and where you can subscribe to the show. We stream live every Friday at 2 p.m. Eastern, and we will see you all next week.
Bye, guys. See you soon.
Bye.